Hello! Welcome to Fish People Music. My name's Lottie, and today we're going to be carrying on with the restoration of the Jen Synthetone SX1000. In the last video we replaced the caps in the power supply, and we still have issues. I mean, fewer issues than we had at the beginning of the video, because it at least powers on now and doesn't trip any fuses. That's a good thing. So today I'm going to be taking the individual circuit boards out. It's completely modular inside, which is helpful, and replacing all the capacitors in there. It may or may not cure it. Chances are it won't, but it's always good practice when you've got electrolytics that are like 50 years old to swap them out anyway. They have a habit of drying up, and if I don't do them now, I'll only have to do them in the future. So I'm interested to see what happens at the end of this. I suspect it won't fix it, but I'm fairly certain it'll improve it. Like I said in the last video, it's just an iterative process until we get it back to normal. So yes, to the workbench, or as I've said before, the kitchen table. I'm actually looking at making a new work area that isn't the kitchen table that I'm going to be experimenting with soon. But until then, let's get a brew, fire up the soldering iron, and let's get going! The internals of the Gen are all divided up into small modules that are wired together with simple connectors. This makes it really handy for being able to take individual pieces out and work on them a small section at a time. This section is the noise generator, and as you'll notice, it's sped up because I don't think anybody really needs to see capacitor removal for 4 different circuit boards when it's all pretty much the same. These circuit boards are single-sided, single layer, so there's no hidden ground planes to suck all of the heat out of the soldering iron, and that makes removal of the capacitors really simple. Just a little bit of flux and some solder wick and they come right off. Every now and again you'll see me checking my mobile phone. This is because I've taken photos of the components in situ before I've removed any, and I can check with the photograph to make sure that I've got the orientation correct, because electrolytic capacitors are polarized and need to go back in the right direction or they will go pop. One of the major safety concerns to remember when working on this equipment is that old school technology was soldered with leaded solder as opposed to the lead-free that we have these days. That means that any fumes and smoke that comes off it is going to be full of lead, which is a neurotoxin and will do damage to your brain as it accumulates in your body. So make sure that if you're working on something of this vintage, that you're working somewhere ventilated and you don't breathe in any of the fumes. And as we go through each of the boards in turn, you'll notice that they're actually really sparsely populated compared to modern equipment, and that makes them easier to work on, which is really nice. I actually very much enjoyed working on this project, and as we get to the end of our capacitor replacement, it's time to see if what we've done has any effect. Okay, so now that it's all roughly back together, the moment of truth. Well, something's happening. We're still getting weird signals coming from the glide control, but we're actually getting kind of a response from the keyboard now. I mean, it plays the same note no matter what key you push, and some keys aren't registering. But, I mean, it's better than it was. It's less broken now than it was before. So, less bad is good, or less bad is less bad. I suppose what I'm trying to say is it's still broken. It's obviously not. I mean, well, that key doesn't work. But it's almost like it's stuck playing one note. But whenever you push a key, it's actually triggering the VCA, and by the sounds of it, possibly the LFO, but it's all stuck at one pitch. Don't seem to be getting anything out of the filter. So yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing. So swapping out all the caps, fixed an issue possibly. It sounds bad, but not as bad as it did before. So any bit of progress is good. I think what we need to do next is take the keyboard out, and as I've done with everything else so far, swap out any caps, look for any corrosion, and clean it up and see if it's anything to do with the keyboard multiplex, because I mean, that's a signal getting through, but it's also a signal that's not getting through the right places. I don't know. Yeah, refurb the pots in the the caps in the keyboard, and then see what comes up next. And that about does it for this video. I'd offer to play you out with some fancy music, but I can make it do some really cool distortion noises. Yeah, that's what it sounds like when you play an octave. It's not yet defeated, but it's not yet defeated me. And with that, I shall say, cheerio.